Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 10 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. October 8th, 1978. It's week 6, and we've got a matchup on our hands between the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. This is a pretty important game for both teams. Minnesota currently sits at 3-2, while the Green Bay Packers lead the NFC Central with a 5-1 record. A win here would go a long way in helping them keep pace for the NFC Central crown for what would be the 6th straight year. As for Seattle, they're 2 back entering this week of the Denver Broncos in the AFC West. So if they want any shot at winning the division, then this game is almost a must-win. Seattle winds up striking first, as Jim Zorn finds Sam McCollum on a dime for a 45-yard touchdown, who then does the old running into the tunnel trick. Later in the first, Jim Zorn takes it in himself, this time running it in from 12 yards out to give the Seahawks a 13-0 lead. That would be the score at the end of the first, though the Vikings would strike at the start of the second, with Ahmad Rashad scoring from 2 yards out on a touchdown pass by Fran Tarkenton. After some miscues on both sides, with Seattle throwing an interception in the end zone and Minnesota missing a field goal, Seattle strikes again with 40 seconds left in the half, as David Sims punched it in from 8 yards out. Fun fact, Sims led the league in rushing touchdowns in 1978, then scored none for the rest of his career. Talk about a one-hit wonder. Minnesota is able to drive down the field late in the first half, as Fran Tarkenton keeps it himself for the touchdown. Seattle leads 19-14 at the end of the first half, but Minnesota's got some momentum on their side, and they come out swinging in the third quarter. On their first drive, they're able to move down the field before Robert Miller runs it in from 5 yards out to give Minnesota their first lead of the game. After forcing their second straight 3-and-out, the Vikings get the ball back. This happens. The ref rules it an incomplete pass. You be the judge as to whether or not this is a fumble. The ruling keeps the drive alive, and the Vikings capitalize again, as Sammy White catches a 9-yard touchdown from Tarkenton to give the Vikings a 2-possession, 28-19 lead. You be the judge as to whether or not he got both feet in bounds. Remember that there was no replay back in 1978, but this looks pretty obvious. Regardless, things are looking really good for the Vikings right now, especially after Jim Zorn gets picked off to start the fourth quarter. But then Zorn redeems himself and makes some magic happen. On their next drive, he runs it in from 22 yards out to make it a 28-26 ball game. The Kingdome is now alive again. If Seattle can get a stop here, they've got a shot at winning this. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens, as the Vikings come up 1 yard short on third down. Seattle gets it back. After a fourth down conversion keeps their drive alive, a Sherman Smith run gets Seattle into Viking territory, and a few plays later, Zorn finds Smith to put the Seahawks in field goal range. One play later, and we're at the 2-minute warning. So now here we are after the 2-minute warning. Seahawks have the ball at the 33-yard line. Vikings have all of their timeouts left. Jim Zorn finds Sherman Smith for the first down, as Smith gets to the 18-yard line in the red zone. Any doubts now about being in Herrera's field goal range are long gone. But Minnesota's got 3 timeouts. Just get a stop here, use your timeouts, and you can get the ball back with about a minute left and try to answer. All you've got to do is call time. No, they're letting the Seahawks call a play. All right. Well, you've still got time to call one and get the ball back for your out. No, the clock continues to tick. Any day now. I've got nowhere to be. You gonna use one of your timeouts to get there? You gonna stop the clock at all? Okay. Well, now the Seahawks are lining up for a field goal on third down with 3 seconds left that is essentially an extra point. You're not getting the ball back, and you've got all of your timeouts. That raises the question, why did you not burn a timeout?
Zorn pulls, it's up, it's good! And that's it, there'll be no more time today.
That's the ball
The
game.
Seattle Seahawks have upset the Minnesota Vikings 29-28, and the great indoors of the Pacific Northwest is going wild.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break this play down, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something that looked bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something that looked awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Bud Grant. This is a weird one, because we've covered plenty of bad coaches on this show, plenty of coaches that have had successful careers, and heck, we even covered a coach that won a Super Bowl. But this is the first Hall of Fame coach being looked at. Bud Grant is one of the best to ever do it, and one of the best of his era. As of this video, he's 93 years old and still going strong. This is a man that won 11 division titles, made it to 4 Super Bowls, and never finished with double-digit losses in any of his 17 seasons in the league. And yet, this decision made no sense. So with that being said, let's take a look at why deciding not to use a timeout in this situation is a bad one. If you've seen episodes of this series or In Defense Of, you know that I like to look at things from a risk-reward standpoint. It makes sense then to look at the risk and reward of what happens if you take timeouts here. You risk the possibility that if you do get the ball back, that the game isn't automatically over. Let's say that Seattle misses the field goal, which we'll talk more about the realistic possibility of that happening in a bit. If by some crazy possibility, Seattle misses what essentially amounts to an extra point, Seattle would still have 2 timeouts left, and you're getting the ball back with about a minute left. That means that Seattle will get a chance to touch the ball again with about 10 seconds left. And seeing as a missed field goal would have placed the ball at the 20-yard line and not the line of scrimmage, you're not risking a safety unless the punt gets blocked or the snap is poor. And unless there's an incredible return or a shank of a punt, the Seahawks aren't getting a shot at a field goal. They're going to have to settle for a Jim Zorn Hail Mary attempt. Basically, the odds that Minnesota wins the game, even if they give the ball back to Seattle, are extremely high. The only risk in this situation is what happens if you have the lead. It's not much of a risk, all things considered. Compare that to the reward, which is in the 99% chance that Herrera hits the field goal, you have a minute left to drive down the field and get a field goal. You're getting the last chance. You're getting a chance to answer if your defense can make a stop. There is no risk, all reward for doing this. Now let's compare that to the risk reward of, not taking a timeout in this situation. You risk the chance that you're never touching the ball again. The only reward is that the game is over if Herrera misses the field goal. Now, was there ever a chance that Evelyn Herrera was going to miss this one? I looked at every kick that Herrera had from inside 20 yards up until that point in his career, starting from when he began it all in 1974 as a member of the Dallas Cowboys. In his 4 seasons with the Cowboys, Herrera was 5 for 5 on field goals from inside 20 yards. Let's add extra points in there, since the distance is exactly the same, and Herrera missed a grand total of 2 of them in 4 years, going 106 for 108. He even led the league in extra points the previous year in 1977. Want to see the 2 extra points he missed? Here's one from a 1977 game against the Eagles, which got blocked. And here's one from a 1977 game against the Steelers, which got blocked on an incredible jumping effort by Dirt Winston. This was a guy that in the last 4 seasons had hit 111 out of 113 possible kicks from inside of 20 yards, or 98.2%. Those were the odds that Bud Grant was playing with by not calling the timeout. The reward is that if you get the ball back, the game is over. The risk is that you got less than a 2% shot at winning this game. In Bud Grant's defense, the special teams did play well, and had blocked 2 extra points already. But let's break those blocks down a bit further. One of them was on an extra point that came from the 7-yard line due to a false start penalty on Seattle. The other one was from the same spot, so I'm not taking anything away from there. Still, more often than not during this game, Herrera's kicks were not blocked. Even in the small sample size of 5 where you blocked 2 kicks, or 6 because you had to redo one, he still made 3 or 4 of them. The odds are not on your side no matter which sample size you choose. The 5 or 6 kick sample of this game before the kick in question, or the roughly 99% sample size going against you from the previous 3 seasons. And now we ask the same question. Could Minnesota have driven down the field to get into field goal range? Well, there's a blatantly obvious piece of evidence that suggests that they could have, with the evidence being, this exact same game! Literally with 40 seconds left in the first half, the Seahawks scored to make it 19-7. Minnesota got the ball, and a nice return to set themselves up near midfield. Tarkenton found Sammy White, and within 1 play, they were in field goal range. 2 plays later, after a catch by Ahmad Rashad, they were inside the 5-yard line. and after a penalty on the next play, Tarkenton ran it in himself for the score. Just over an hour before this situation, they drove the length of the field in 4 plays. There is no way whatsoever that you'd rather put your faith in the hands of a block kick than Hall of Fame quarterback Fran Tarkenton, who was having an unbelievable game. Tarkenton had 274 yards passing on a 73% completion percentage with 2 touchdowns, no picks, a passer rating of 111.8, and a rushing touchdown. This was arguably one of the best games of his career and easily his best game in the second half of the 1970s. And you'd rather rely on a block kick? Let's even assume that there's not enough time left to drive down the field and you're putting yourself in a Hail Mary situation. Is there any evidence to suggest that Fran Tarkenton could have set the Vikings up for that? Amazingly enough, there is, and the evidence comes from a month prior. Monday Night Football, Week 2 against the Denver Broncos, and it's the final play of the first half. Apologies for the poor quality video, but this is the best that I could find. Tarkenton throws it up, and check out what happens here. Rashad nearly catches it off with a deflection, hauling it in with one hand. If he catches it, it's probably a touchdown. This might even be a play that Rashad makes more often than not. So even if you have a Hail Mary situation on your hands, your odds are still significantly higher than getting a blocked field goal. And yet the Vikings decided to put their faith in the hands of their special teams unit to do something almost impossible, instead of their future Hall of Fame quarterback to do something manageable. Whatever Bud Grant was thinking here is beyond me. So what do we learn from this sequence of events? If you're relying on a block kick to win the game, you've already lost. If you got timeouts and you should probably use them, considering the fact that they don't carry over to the next game, use them. If your 2 options to win the game are relying on your Hall of Fame quarterback to play well or your special teams to get a blocked field goal, take the Hall of Fame quarterback. And if you're relying on a kicker missing an extra point to win the game, then you might as well just give up now. Because when all of these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision.
Zorn pulls, it's up, it's good! And that's it. There'll be no more time today.
That's the ball
The
game.
Seattle Seahawks have upset the Minnesota Vikings 29-28, and the great indoors of the Pacific Northwest is going wild.
If you like this series and want to see more of it, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.